And you hear that sound, and you know what that means. It's time for another edition here of the Mass Steel podcast. Right now, of course, yours truly, Charles Prodigy Ritchie, right here. And like I said, I know I've been announcing little by little. I'll be trying to return back to my 6:30 Central Standard Time. But right now, I got my usual guest, my one partner in crime, always a great friend of the show right here. He writes for CBS. Talk about the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend of social media these days, especially on Facebook Live. And you can catch a lot of his online blogs. Talk about none other than Brian DiArlo right here. Get ready to talk our favorite right now, some football. Where the Steelers stand at right now. Can we be saying that the Cleveland rocks right now? Can they possibly steal this division in this final next few weeks right here? Steelers desperately trying to hang on, wrap up their playoff berth. They'll be needing a Browns loss plus a win this week to wrap up the AFC North, but they still need a game to clinch the playoffs. Plus, we're going to get in some other teams right now that are on the verge of clinching right now. And then also, too, whose bubbles will be bursted, no pun intended, but the NFL and NFLPA are looking for local bubbles coming up for the playoffs. We'll provide a little bit more to you on that. You can follow my man, Brian DiArlo, on Twitter and Instagram at Brian DiArlo. As for myself, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Pride Richie, Mass Steel Podcast at Mass Steel CGR, and on Instagram at Mass Steel Nation right now. Brian, it was great to have you on right now. I must say before we get started a little bit further, you were able to check out the Fresh Prince reunion last month, correct?
I did not.
No? Okay, let me ask you a question right now. With everything that's going on right now, which team do you think is probably in trouble right now? They will probably endure the Uncle Phil evil laugh right now if they can't finish the deal for the rest of this month, trying to get into the playoffs. Which team do you think stands out for you right there?
I'm watching the Patriots right now just miss a fourth and goal that would have gotten them on the board. Probably isn't the team you were thinking about, but New England's had a really nice comeback here. They were 4-6. They've won 2 in a row, but the Rams are tough. They're a tough team.
Yeah.
They're first in the NFC West for a reason. They're one of the best against the run, and if you can stop the run, and Cam Akers, who started the year slow, and the Rams rely more on Darrell Henderson for the most part. He's coming on strong and had a big run earlier tonight. So the Rams, conversely, are in really good shape to get to the playoffs to win their division, and they're still not out. I mean, the NFC is wide open, and I'm talking everything.
Oh, yeah.
The number 1 seed, I think right now would have to. I think Green Bay and the Saints are kind of fighting for that one. But right now the Cardinals are in trouble. If we're looking at the NFC and the 49ers, they're really kind of fighting for their playoff lives. And the Bears, as I know you're close to them, and they have a big game this weekend. And I think I actually picked them to win that game. I think that they're with their running game now starting to come back with Montgomery. I like potentially them to win this game and to keep their playoff hopes alive. But when you look at the AFC, I'm trying to think of a team that quote unquote be in trouble. I mean, the Patriots potentially, because if they lose this game, you can almost eliminate them. Monday's game is going to be huge between the Browns and the Ravens. The Ravens were able to beat the Cowboys to get to 7-5. I do think that it's likely going to require 10 wins to make the playoffs, because if you look at it, the Chiefs and Steelers have 11 wins, so there's 2 teams. The Bills are going to make it. They already have 9 wins unless they fall apart here. So that's 3 teams. The Colts will probably make it in their division. They have 8 wins as we speak. They'll play the Steelers later this month. The Dolphins already have 8 wins, and they're going to play the Chiefs on Sunday. So Steeler fans will have to be Dolphin fans for a little bit on Sunday. And then you've got the Browns, who already have 9 wins. So I think it's going to take easily 10 wins. So I would say if the Patriots lose this game, for all intents and purposes, they're done. Even if they run the table and get to 9-7, and so and the Ravens are in trouble because they cannot lose any more ground because it looks like the Dolphins potentially are going to get that last playoff spot. So them and the Browns are going to get the wild card spot. So they're going to have to win this game. I think it's going to come down to Miami, and it's going to come down to Baltimore. And at this point, I would take Miami. But yeah, there's a lot of important games. But if you're a Steelers fan, you're going to be cheering for the Dolphins this weekend. You're also going to be cheering for the Ravens, as weird as that sounds.
You know what? To be honest with you, I wore purple and gold before, but that was for a whole nother sport. And the only other exception I would make it for football is my sister, who's in Minnesota. But no, I could definitely understand that. But you know what? Speaking of the Browns right now, and I made this comment to quite a few people I know. And I must say, I know Kevin Stefanski right now. He's been doing a marvelous job with this team. I wouldn't be surprised if he was able to somehow grab this division, make a nice playoff run, that he might beat out Tomlin for Coach of the Year. Because if you look at about nearly 59% of the time, that award is usually given to coaches who usually turn a losing team into a winning team, or from a losing team to a playoff team right here. And I understand what Mike Tomlin did without Ben Roethlisberger for the first year, 8-8. But I think the way Mike Tomlin cinches it is if he finds a way to hold on to the number one seed. Because look at last year with the Baltimore Ravens. They had that hot playoff run stretch when they inserted Lamar Jackson and won the AFC North. Yes, they got bounced out by the Chargers, but then what happened a year later after they lost that second game of the season, which ironically was to the Browns? They made that run to go 14-2, number one seed, despite getting bounced out this time to the Titans. I say that's got what Mike Tomlin needs to do to finish the deal if he's going to get that award.
I don't think he's going to win, unfortunately. I don't even know if he actually is receiving serious consideration. I think that Rivera has really picked up steam. I would say, honestly, it's him and Stefanski would be the top two candidates for Coach of the Year. You also have to consider, too, that Rivera, had cancer this year and was going through chemo. Yeah. He was coaching going through chemo. And right now, he's coaching a team that really has been good for several years. And they changed their logo.
The cultural change and everything,
The sexual assault allegations within the organization, or the culture problems they were having. He's navigated all of that. He had to, he had the guts to bench a former first-round quarterback and Dwayne Haskins. He's navigated all of that, and then you look what they did against the Steelers on Monday. I mean, pretty much they were a pretty front-heavy team in terms of they rely a lot on McLaurin and Gibson to get things going. Well, the Steelers shut down McLaurin. They blanketed him with Hayden, and they had Fitzpatrick watching him a lot, and then Gibson got hurt on the second possession. So the fact that Washington won that game with those two guys really being non-factors was super impressive. So, unfortunately, I don't think Tomlin's going to win it, and I don't even think he's getting much consideration, and I don't think Ben's getting any consideration for comeback player of the year. I think he'll get some votes, but I think that award is going to go to Alex Smith. And I think, Ben's best shot to win anything is going to be team MVP, which I think he'll win, or maybe league MVP, but I think he's probably 6th or 7th in that conversation. I think right now it's Mahomes and Rodgers, and then maybe Alvin Kamara or Dalvin Cook's gotten some votes, and also Derrick Henry's gotten some votes. But I think it's either going to be Rodgers or Mahomes for that award.
We are definitely being joined right now by Brian Diarlo, writer for NFL CBS. We're getting into the stretch run right now, the season right now. And speaking of which, right now, staying with the AFC, which team also do you really feel like has been make some noise as of late? You can look back a couple of weeks ago before the Thanksgiving holiday. You saw the Titans right there standing on the Ravens logo right there before the start of the game. Barely beat them, slowly find their way back in the first place in the South right now, which is being duked out. Titans hold the tiebreaker with only one loss in the division, obviously being to the Colts. But yet, on the other hand, too, you also got a team in the Bills right now who's looking to clinch their first AFC East, can you say, since Jim Kelly and Marv Levy as a quarterback coach tandem. And then you still got impressive Dolphins team right now with Tua Tagovailoa. Once again, if you're looking at in the AFC, who would be a dangerous out you do not want to see in the playoffs?
Let's break them down. The Dolphins, I feel good with against rookie quarterback. As good as Tua can look, and he looked better. He looked good in the second half against Cincinnati. He didn't look good in the first half. I like my chances against a rookie quarterback in the playoffs. So the Dolphins would be the team I would want to see first out of that group. Josh Allen's good, and the Bills are good, but their defense isn't quite as good as it was last year. And they rely a lot on Stephon Diggs. So they would be the second team. And then I would say the Colts last because I know Rivers is up and down and he can turn the ball over. But they played well with him. They don't have any great skilled players, but they've got a lot of good ones. I mean, Jack Doyle, T.Y. Hilton is still good when he's healthy. They lost Marlon Mack way early in the season, and Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines have done very well in tandem. So, and Darius Leonard, who I know a lot of Steeler fans wish they had back in the 18 draft, and they made up for it by getting Devin Bush a year later. But, their defense is really good. And so that game against the Colts is going to be a big game coming up here for the Steelers. The Colts would be the team that I would be leery of, and then also the Browns. But, the Browns' defense is very up and down, even with Myles Garrett on the field. They're still a couple of defensive players away. And also, they do have good defensive players, but a lot of them are young. Greedy Williams, I think, still has a lot of room to grow. He's only in his second season. The kid they had from Ohio State a couple of years ago, he's very good, but he's still young. So defensively, the Browns still have some room to work on. But I will say this about Cleveland. The thing that is really impressive is how well their secondary receivers have filled in for the void left by Beckham's absence. You look at what Donovan Peoples-Jones is doing, a 6th-round pick from Michigan. Look what he's doing. Higgins, what he's doing. And then obviously Jarvis Landry being healthy has been a big improvement too. It's an offense that's very similar to the one Stefanski ran in Minnesota, but instead of one or two really good receivers, he has one. But instead of one really good running back, he has two. And he's got pretty much the same offensive line, the same tight end set. So, I would be leery of facing them. But if you're really looking at quarterbacks, I'm not terribly scared of Baker Mayfield. But that being said, he has been playing better in recent weeks.
I dare to go on to say, covering the Steelers and being a fan of them as well, if we watch this team, I will say this with respect to the Browns. Myles Garrett, for some reason, he is to the Browns, I think, what Mean Joe Green was to the Steelers. Kevin Stefanski, I think, is definitely pushing them over the top, find a way to work with Mayfield, still have some trust in him, get this offense working. You already inherited a great running back tandem and Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Still got Odell Beckham, even though he's lost for the year. But I just feel like, aside from that incident that happened last year with Mason Rudolph, they seem to show a lot of trust in this guy. And I really feel like right now he's playing with a chip on his shoulder with this team. He's a big cornerstone piece for them so far.
Right. Yeah. It's the Steelers' schedule coming down the stretch is going to be tough. They've got Cincinnati. If Joe Burrow was there, that would be a game I would scratch off as a win. But Burrow is out. So the Bengals are still playing tough. But without Burrow, it's very hard for them to play four full quarters. They got the Browns week 17, and that game will most likely matter for the Steelers. If the Steelers were still undefeated right now, I would say, there's still hope that they might not need that game, but they'll probably need that game unless Kansas City loses again. Because let's say the Steelers are on the table until that weekend. Kansas City loses one game, the Steelers can afford to lose. Essentially, the Steelers have to be one game better than Kansas City going into that game. Because the Steelers lost to Washington, they hold the tiebreaker because their record in the AFC is still undefeated. So from a win-loss standpoint, that wasn't a bad loss. Specifically talking more about that loss, which I'm sure you want to do, I left that game not being that disappointed, to be honest with you, because it wasn't like Washington. Now, Washington deserved to win. I want to say that at the start. But it wasn't like Washington lined up and just beat the Steelers. The Steelers beat themselves, and Washington made the necessary plays to take advantage of it. The Steelers had a lot of drop passes. They didn't execute on 4th and shorts. Their defense gave up a couple of splash plays, particularly to Cam Sims. So I left that game thinking, man, the Steelers did not play well at all, and they lost to a team that is fighting for a playoff spot. So I left actually pretty encouraged. Ben wasn't sacked again. He's still getting hit, but he wasn't sacked again. He has been sacked since week 8. And the running game should get better with Connor and Pouncey coming back. And again, I mean, their defense is really good. Even with losing, now they're not going to have Vince Williams for Sunday most likely, and probably not Spillane. So that inside linebacker group is really going to be tested on Sunday, which is going to be tough. But if Vince Williams is in there and Spillane, I mean, Highsmith looked good. He definitely looked good on Monday. And TJ Watt, people wondered how he would look now not having Bud on the other side. He had a sack and looked fine. So, I mean, defensively, they still look very good. And as long as they can catch the ball on offense, and if they can improve that running game, I think they're still I thought they would be end the season 14-2. I'm now starting to lean towards 19-3 or 13-3. But regardless, I mean, I still think they're a good – until a team lines up and actually beats them and they don't beat themselves, I'm going to feel good about them.
You know what? I will say this. I mean, I'm kind of with you right now. I'm not so much worried about defense right now. I think they could definitely they'll find ways to like get that settled down. But I will say this too: the only one flaw that I was noticing on the defense where they were getting beaten. This was kind of happening with the Ravens game little by little. I think where it's like you're getting like these little sweep running plays or quarterback sneaks. But if you watch like the Washington football team game, what they were doing, they were able to like successfully block as a unit and create some running lanes and like double, triple team a lot of these guys and force a lot of their safeties and corners to be making tackles in that game. I felt like they were able to just work with that. But on the offensive side, here's the thing that concerns me. If I get a little worried, 3rd and short or 4th and short right there. We all heard about Benny Snell football. I mean, his rookie year. Personally, I don't think he's a starting running back from start to finish. I mean, he did have those nice games last year versus like the Bengals and Browns in the second half of the season down that stretch run. But I do feel like right now they are so dearly missing Adam Munchak, who is with the Broncos for his second year. A lot of it, I mean, the attitude of the offensive line trying to help out the run game, I think, is dissipated. And they will attribute Ben being protected more because he's getting rid of the ball quicker.
Yeah, right. And I think we both said this before we came on. I think Deontay Johnson is receiving a lot of unnecessary flack. He does have to do a better job catching the ball, but yeah, I mean, a lot of that is focus. And Juju even said that earlier this week. I think it was this morning. He said that they're looking too much where to go before they catch the ball. Now, some of that is getting hit. They want to know where the defender's coming from. And I hate saying it, but that comes with being a receiver that's going to make catches on the inside. Maybe they need to design other plays. Actually, bear with me here, but I just watched the Ghost to the Post game from 1977. And in that game, that play that goes to the post.
How about the Raiders and Colts, right?
Right, yeah. The Raiders receivers, Blednikoff and Branch, were on opposite sides, and Casper ran a post to kind of flush out the safeties, which would leave the middle of the field, you would think, open. And then that's where Branch and Blednikoff would go. Maybe the Steelers need to do more of that, and maybe they are, and I don't know. And I'll start watching for it, but maybe do more plays like that where you're flushing out the safeties so that those receivers can catch the ball and not fear getting hit immediately, where they can have more comfort, where they can just say, hey, I'm going to catch the ball. I'm going to be comfortable here, and then I can look upfield. But some of, I hate saying it though, but some of that is just if you're catching the ball in the middle of the field against an NFL defense, even with the NFL's new rules, you're going to get hit. That's just a fact of a fact. So maybe they need to in the draft next year or in free agency, if it doesn't get better, try to find a receiver that is tough like that. I mean, it cost Eli Rogers his career because he got hurt a lot severely making those hard catches. But for Eli's fault, he was a tough receiver. Nobody can say otherwise. Bernie Mills was that way. Andre Hastings was that way. Yancey Thigpen was that way. Hines Ward was the epitome of that. Juju's proven to be that. It hurts, and it's tough to play football when you're a receiver across the middle, but that's why they pay you the big bucks to catch those passes.
Okay, let's currently look at the current playoff scenarios right now across the league right now. You got the Steelers, as we just mentioned, for the division, just need to win this Sunday and hope that the Browns lose to the Ravens on Monday. And then the clinch a playoff spot, they could do that with a win or a Raiders, Dolphins, or Titans loss. Chiefs right now got an opportunity to clinch the AFC West with a win or a Raiders loss. And then the Bills clinch a playoff spot with a win plus a Ravens, Dolphins, Raiders, or Patriots loss or tie. But here, let's swing things over to the NFC right now. You look at the New Orleans Saints in particular, too. It almost seems kind of like deja vu all over again, where Drew Brees is out, but this time in the latter part of the season with the bruised ribs and the collapsed lung he had. Do you see the Saints? Do you think last year was a fluke how their season ended? And what's the verdict on this team making the run to NFC? If not, who do you think is like the team aside from the Rams we just mentioned a few moments ago?
Well, I think the Saints need to keep Taysom Hill in at quarterback because that's a tough decision because the Saints have not lost with a back the last 2 years, and as good as Drew Brees is, they're better with Taysom Hill. That is, if you're Sean Payton, it's the old saying: when you have two quarterbacks, you have none. And that's kind of the position that the Saints are putting themselves in where, they're going to – I'm 90% sure they're going to put in Brees because this is the Brady Bledsoe situation from 2001. But the difference is, as good as Bledsoe was, he was replaceable where, let's be honest. Brees isn't all-time great. He's number one all-time and I believe in passing yards. I think Brady's passed him in touchdowns now that he's been out. But, he's beloved in New Orleans. Maybe Saints fans will be okay with it, but that's a tough decision. And it's not to me. To me, it's not. But I understand the intangibles of that decision and how that could be tough. The Packers don't have that problem. The Packers' defense is not as good as the Saints, but they're good. I think this could be the Packers' year, to be honest. If I had to pick a team to come out of the NFC, I'd take Green Bay. They're winning a division that I think is underrated. The Lions have had their problems. Obviously, Patricia, didn't do a great job there, but they're showing recently that they're not a terrible team. They're playing tough, and Matt Stafford is a very good player. The Vikings are fighting for a 7th spot, so and so are the Bears. So Green Bay is winning a very an underrated division. Rodgers is playing at an all-time level. Him and LaFleur have really developed a great rapport with each other. They have a good running game, a good enough defense, and they have good receivers. And Rodgers has done a lot of this without Allen Lazard. And now that Lazard is coming back, with Devontae Adams, who's also been banged up at times this year, I think they're ready to roll. And there's a reason why they didn't draft a receiver, because they like the ones they have. And they did pick up a tight end out of Cincinnati, who is turned into a really good player for them this season that no one else is talking about. So I think if I had to pick now, it would be a Green Bay, Kansas City Super Bowl. And I think the Steelers could potentially get there. But if you had to twist my arm today and ask me who I think will be in the Super Bowl, I think it's going to be Kansas City and Green Bay.
Kansas City and Green Bay. I think that'd be an interesting one right there. I'm also a State Farm client myself, so I was going to ask you. So, I mean, who would you say was more of a good neighbor in that Super Bowl?
That's a good one. Big Pete.
I don't think they'd be waiting for the face of the NFL, but for the face of State Farm too. There's a lot of extra bragging rights in that.
Manning and Nationwide wouldn't love that, but yeah, I mean, Mahomes is a great player. I mean, I don't want to already say he's an all-time. I mean, I'm not going to put him in the Hall of Fame now, but if you look at his career, let's say the Chiefs win the Super Bowl this year, Mahomes, is MVP again or something, and let's say, God forbid, next year he suffers a career-altering injury. He would have pretty much the same career as Terrell Davis, and Terrell Davis is in the Hall of Fame. I know running back, quarterback is different, but I mean, Mahomes at 25 has done everything you could do in the NFL in 2 years of starting. League MVP, Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP. He's led the league in passing touchdowns. He hasn't led the league in passing yards yet, but that's not a huge stat. But, Pro Bowl both times, All-Pro both times. I mean, he's already done everything that you can do. Now, the question is how many more times can he do it? But, yeah, he's an unbelievable player. And younger quarterbacks that I really like Burrow. I loved Burrow's attitude before he got hurt. I love that he didn't expect anything to be given to him. He never complained about being on a team that was struggling. Never complained about getting hit hard and not getting star treatment. Never complained about losing. So I really respect him. I like Tua. I like Herbert. I'm not ready yet to anoint either of them as like future Hall of Famers. I think Burrow is still the best of those players. I like Drew Lock. He makes dumb mistakes sometimes, but I like him. And this Eagles situation is crazy. It's crazy. And I know that Dallas dealt with the Dak injury and other things, but I watched the Dallas game last night. I don't know if you did, but they are atrocious. That defense might be the worst defense I've ever seen. And it's not like they don't have talent. They're not trying that hard. I saw them stop chasing Lamar Jackson mid-play last night.
Well, I also heard Skip Bayless also mentioned too. I mean, who's a diehard Cowboys fan, just like Stephen A. Smith is with the Steelers. But one of the points he was saying, aside from like Mike McCarthy, people are really tuning out Mike Nolan's defensive philosophies on that team. That's another issue in itself, right there.
Well, I mean, that was like last year, for example, like the draft. I literally feel like they drafted just by looking at expert mocks. Because every pick they made, it was just what player is best available that was on mock drafts. And maybe there was a reason why those players fell. But Jerry Jones, I feel like his entire career has been trying to massage the balance between being a showman and caring too much about the show versus putting together a good product on the field. And I think that's why they've been where they are, which is mediocre. They have some years where they're actually pretty good, like 2016 and 2018. Years where they're average, like last year at 17. And years like now where they're just a train wreck. And, there's been worse owners or GMs owners than Jerry Jones, for sure. But it's a kind of a shame that the Dallas, for their fans, they can't be better because their owner gets in his own way.
Let me ask you another crazy question real quick here. Let's spit on this. If Tony La Russa could come back and manage the White Sox, why can't we see a comeback story with a guy like Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones by squashing their beef all these years, bring back Jimmy Johnson to the Cowboys, make a turnaround right there? What do you say to that?
I can answer that pretty easily. It's because Jimmy Johnson doesn't want to coach anymore. He is totally done. He's also almost 80 years old. So, I know him, and I know he's probably younger than La Russa, but Jimmy Johnson. Now, I will say this. They need to get Jimmy Johnson in the Ring of Honor. The fact that the Cowboys haven't put him in is really a shame.
Atrocious. Yeah.
So that to me is there. Now, if you're talking old coaches that should come back, if Cowher wanted to, he should. But again, with a lot of those coaches, now Dick Vermeil is obviously the exception. But you look at like Jeff Fisher now. You look at Coward. You look at Schottenheimer. Once you get so many years removed from the grind, once you allow yourself to get past that point when you miss it, and you just start appreciating not having that grind, then it's impossible, I think, to come back, because you just get so used to your new life and not dealing with that stress. I mean, and I give John Madden a lot of credit. I mean, John Madden, I think, was 42 when he retired from coaching, and he said he's done and he's never coming back.
And he stuck to it.
He stuck to it. He's like the only, and honestly, John Madden is maybe the most underrated coach. Well, he's in the Hall of Fame, so I can't call him underrated, really. But he's among the most underrated coach. He might be the most underrated coach that has won a Super Bowl, other than Tom Flores. Madden was a great coach. The problem was he coached in an era with Don Shula and Chuck Noll and Hank Stram. I mean, the 70s, I will always say, was the hardest era to win championships in, unless you were the Steelers and the Dolphins and the Cowboys. I mean, those are three all-time legendary teams. And the Vikings in any other decade would have won a ring. The Colts in any other decade probably would have been to a Super Bowl. The Raiders in any other decade would have won. Look what happened with the Raiders once the 80s started, and they kept that philosophy. And they promoted, and Flores replaced Madden. They kept that, then they won 2 more Super Bowls, which people forget, because the competition was a little bit easier in the AFC. A lot easier, actually, not a little bit. So yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, John Madden was an all-time great coach for sure, and I'm glad he's in the Hall of Fame.
Last thing I want to wrap up with, I know I mentioned this before I got you on, but I remember Bill Cowher was saying it on with James Brown and Recurse Hart from Ray Lewis, Michael Irvin, little by little legends of the game, making the point of emphasis that when the playoffs roll around, a bubble should be implemented for the playoffs. Right now, they're looking at local bubbles possibly, and probably it could take up to a week to build, identifying 4 areas. Once you do some data research, can you take us a little bit into the dynamics? Have you heard any more in depth aside from them, like players and teams staying at hotels, and what would be like the alarming concerns you'd still have to hold your breath on? I mean, as we saw with teams like the Ravens, the Titans, what are the concerns and positives you see out of this?
Well, I think the negative would be trying to figure out all of this on a very short time span. Because, the NFL is a moving, Mike Tomlin says it all the time. I mean, you're on a moving train since from the start of training camp. You're on a moving train.
I felt like they should have by the end of the summer determined, if you ask me.
I beg your pardon?
I think they should at least have something planned by the end of summer, end of training camp.
Well, yeah.
I feel like this is kind of being rushed a little bit, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I think, I will say this. I think when NFL teams signed up to play this season, when everybody that did opt out, you pretty much signed up for this, which is you might lose your bye in week 7 and have to take, or week 8 and have to take it in week 4. You may have to play games on Wednesdays. I don't think people envisioned it was going to be this crazy where you've got games on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Mondays at 5 o'clock, but you kind of signed up for a season unlike any we've seen before. So I guess a bubble at this point. I think, again, to me, though, the logistics of putting this together, I think, would be pretty hectic for everybody involved. They'd have to figure this out like the weekend of week 17, where they would say, all right, as soon as we know who's going to make the playoffs, we're going to contact you and tell you where you're going, and then Tuesday you'll head out to that stadium, or you'll head out to that area. But it can't be one of those things where they're trying to figure it out midweek. If you're going to do this, you have to have a firm deadline, when you play your game on Sunday, Monday we're telling you where you're going, and then Tuesday you're leaving and going there. And then the players have a day or two with their families to get their affairs in order. And I will say this, NFL players, I mean, they've gotten used to being able to come home to their wives and come home and relax. I think I know it's only a month. I know it's less time than the NBA and the NHL, but they're not going to take it well. Players aren't going to like it, especially ones that are married and that have kids. They're really not going to like it. But I mean, if it's only a month, then I think that they'll deal with it. The other thing you have to consider is, I mean, it pretty much wipes out any advantage that you're going to have as it relates to home field. Even though not having fans or little fans does make a difference, it does help when you play on your home field. I mean, you still see it in the NFL. I don't know the official stats, but I guarantee teams still now have a winning record at home or a better record at home versus away. So I do think some teams may be upset that they're losing their chance to play at home. But it's not the end of the world. And I think a bubble would be a good idea. I think a bubble would be a really good idea, to be honest, because we've seen with this rise in the virus, it is affecting the NFL. And even though a lot of teams and players are still being as responsible as possible, you can do everything right and still get COVID. You can go to the gas station and get COVID because the person before you pumped gas and had COVID. Like, we still don't exactly know how we can contract this virus. So, yeah, I think a bubble would be a really good idea. Now, that being said, again, it would probably be in a dome stadium. That would help the Steelers, I would think, who don't play. I don't think they've played a dome this season, but they have played on turf, and they've had success on turf, like the Giants in Week 1. So I think that playing on turf would help the Steelers, because they're a faster team that throws the ball. I think it would hurt a team that likes to run a lot. I think it would hurt a team, honestly, like the Ravens. And obviously 8 more ACL injuries, I think, happen traditionally on turf. It would help a team like the Rams, who play on turf all the time. But yeah, I definitely would be open for a bubble for sure.
Yeah, that's some really good stuff, but I do feel like it's highly possible too. What you could also see them do is, like, once the season concludes, delay the playoffs for about a week, have it start on Martin Luther King weekend, and if you still have your bye in between the Super Bowl, you could have your season and the NFL get what they always wanted, have the season end on President's Day. We could probably see a first ever Valentine's Day Super Bowl.
I don't think that'll happen. I think that the NFL is if there's one thing you've learned from this season, it's that they are very hell-bent on having everything happen on schedule. They are I'm not saying it can't happen.
But like Howard said, integrity of the league too, though. I mean, so what? It's like an extra week. I know you want to further delay things, but my thing is too, we have no freaking clue right now when we see the vaccines come in for this virus. How long is that going to take effect for people?
I think that, like, let's just say, for example,
players.
Let's say the Chiefs and Packers beat the Super Bowl, and Rodgers and/or Mahomes gets COVID, they're positive. I think the NFL would still go ahead and play the game. I think there would be a ton of blowback and brushback, but the NFL, I mean, the MO this season has been, we're going to play if the game can be played. Now, if it's the Super Bowl, I could see. Here's the other thing, though. Super Bowl is scheduled on a certain date. Networks expect to show that game on that date. Everything is set up financially for everything to take place that day. The league will still make money if you have to reschedule, but they will in some way lose money for whatever reason. I'm not technically a business sports person, but there's a reason why the league is very determined to keep that Super Bowl date what it is. So, and again, it's because they have a lot of money tied up into that day. So, but yeah, I mean, again, if there's a lot of players that test positive before that game, then maybe they will pump it back. It'll be interesting. Hopefully that's not a situation that we'll have to see play out.
All right, as always, thank you so much for the time. Look forward to seeing the conclusion of this season. And like I said, I know it's post-Thanksgiving, but I will definitely echo in as many would be right now, considering what everyone's went through throughout the pandemic, the race, presidential election year. I'm glad we got to see some remnants of sports. It was close to not being at all. And my condolences to you, by the way, for Michigan Ohio State being canceled. I heard that, so that kind of took the wind out of some things too.
Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. Well, hey, it was good joining you as always. Stay safe, and let's hope the Steelers win this one. It's gonna be a tough one, a really tough one.
Oh, hey, make sure if you got the HBO app, I'm sure you watched it, but check out the Michigan Ohio State rivalry right there. It's a good documentary. I think you would enjoy.
I will, man. Thank you for the recommendation. I'll definitely do that.
Brian, always a pleasure, my man. You continue to stay safe and well and have a happy holiday coming up. Thank you so much.
You too, buddy. Take care.
You too, boss. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And that was Brian Diarra once again. He writes for CBS. Some interesting topics right there. And I'm not going to lie to you. I really could see a scenario where we see the NFL season and on President's Day. Brian Diarra has very excellent points about the NFL and insisting they're going to finish on time, and they will do it if they can to stay on schedule. But real quick, let's get into a few Steelers headlines real quick as we get ready to wrap this up. It was announced earlier today that right inside linebacker Vince Williams, he is now on the COVID list this year. He now joins Maurkice Pouncey, who more than likely is going to miss his third consecutive game versus the Bills. So more likely be seeing Hassenauer come in this Sunday night against the Bills. Only time will tell. Hassenauer right here. We'll find out. But the reserve COVID list right now is now for this time is Maurkice Pouncey and Vince Williams on here. And then just give you an update on the reserve injured. As you know, it's Zach Banner, Devin Bush, Bud Dupree, Trey Evans, Zach Gentry, Ulysses Gilbert, and Chris Wormley. But let's go into the injury report for this week for the Steelers versus Bills right now. The Steelers had 3 players who did not practice. 2 of them starters, of course, with Joe Hayden, who won the concussion protocol. He did not practice yesterday or today. He's got to go from the concussion protocol. The first step, you got to get some rest. And then once you feel like you're doing good, they'll do some workouts. And if you still feel good the next day, wrap it up. And then just got to go through some clearances by a physician and stuff and see if they get clear to play. But we'll find out what happens on that. Then, of course, you have Robert Spillane, who has a knee injury. He's been missing some time, quite a few weeks. Have no idea when he'll be back, but remember, he's dealing with a knee injury. And then you also got Chase Claypool, who's listed with an illness. Hopefully, keeping our fingers crossed, it is nothing COVID-related. So those are the 3 players right there. On the Buffalo Bills side, you only have 1 player who did not practice, which was backup safety Jaquan Johnson. He's dealing with an ankle injury. He did not practice yesterday or today. And then you had 2 people that were limited. Jake Fromm, quarterback behind Josh Allen. He was limited on Wednesday and Thursday. And last but not least, backup wide receiver Andre Roberts, dealing with Achilles. He was limited all week. A lot of the DK Pittsburgh sports teams to note that it likely will be Avery Williamson and or Marcus Allison for the Steelers at inside linebacker this week. Won't be surprised to see Ulysses Gilbert activated off IR as well, he goes on to say. Also, too, according to Jerry Dulac of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, for the second week in a row, Mike Tomlin used a little salty language to describe failures on his offense, this time referring to the unit allowing missing players to affect its fluidity, he said. To be quite honest with you, it bleeps me off. Also, the Ravens, Jerry Dulac goes on to further note, too, that the Ravens, they rushed for more yards against the Cowboys, 294, than the Steelers have in the past 5 games, 285. Ouch. And also, too, the Steelers, according to Teresa Varley, the team writer, has announced that running back James Conner, he was active for the reserve and COVID-19 list. And they also signed defensive end yesterday, Cassius Marsh, from the Colts practice squad. This will be a 7-team coming over with him, and we'll see what he's able to do. He was on the Colts practice squad, but was activated during the season as a COVID-19 replacement. He's played in 91 games and has 14 sacks, 25 tackles for a loss, 4 full fumble, and 2 fumble recoveries. I want to get back to my guy, Dave Kano. Sorry, man. I was just wrapping up an interview here a few minutes ago. Sorry, question real quick. Thinking about if you feel like the Steelers have a chance on winning, do you think we could beat the Bills Sunday? Absolutely. I definitely do think so. I think the stuff on the defense is fixable. The only concerns I do have, like I said, you're already out without Devin Bush right now, and Robert Spillane, who's going to be out for some time right now. So now you're going to really see how this Avery Williamson signing back in November, how much this, or end of October, I should say, is going to pay off right here. Remember, he was a backup behind Vince Williams, too. And we'll see what he's able to do. But right now, they got to get some things figured out, because he also got, right now, too, Ulysses Gilbert, who should be activated coming up. We'll see how he's able to do. I would imagine he'd be in the spot of Vince Williams. So we'll probably be looking at Avery Williamson and Ulysses Gilbert. I'll be interested to see who we wear in the headset this Sunday for this game. I don't know, maybe a guy like TJ Watt, but we'll see. So I'm going to go ahead. I think the Steelers are going to win this game. I think it's going to be more so because they do get the run game straightened out. I do have a lot more faith in James Conner. James Conner, by the way, right now, he's been one of their most productive backs. Still, at the end of the day, no matter what you say about the guy, despite his lack of availability, I still have a lot more faith in him for the length of a full game, because at the end of the day, a guy like Conner, he still has 645 yards on the ground, averaging 4.4, nearly 4.5 yards per attempt. And also, too, James Conner, he still leads the team in scrimmage. He's still got 790 yards in total scrimmage right now, and the third most touchdowns on a team with 5. So if anything, I do look for it to be a boost. We'll see how much Rusty's able to shake off, but we'll see this Sunday. But yeah, I definitely do feel like right now, the blocking of the run game by the offensive line has to show up, no question about it. So once again, the Steelers' playoff scenarios going into this week, they could wrap up a playoff spot with a win, or if that does not happen prior to that game, you can either have like a Raiders or Dolphins or Titans loss. Either one of those teams lose, Steelers will be put in the playoffs. Remember, they win this game Sunday, and not only that, you have the Browns lose on Monday, division will be locked up. And so that's going to do it for this edition here of the Mountain Steel Pockets. I want to thank my guest, Brian DiArlo. Always a pleasure having you on, my man. And once again, you can follow me on social media on Twitter and Instagram at Prodigy Richie. Now, as always, leave you. Don't be trolling, be rolling. Here we go, serious. Here we go. I gone.
Hey, you blink, I'll cut your eyelids off. Don't you blink. I got you. Let's go.